My name's Raven. I'm 27 years old from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I've been sober for just over 3 years now. And this is my story. My childhood looked good on paper. My dad worked in IT. He was an avid golfer. If it wasn't raining or snowing, he was out on the course. Most summer weekends, he was gone. Sometimes on trips to Florida to get away from the brutal Wisconsin winters. My mom was a school teacher. She was a bit of an athlete herself, into 5Ks, 10Ks, and she even ran a few marathons. Together, they were super involved. PTA, church, bake sales, you name it. It was exhausting. They were the Brady Bunch. I wasn't like that. I was the Addams family. I was content to stay home with the cats and curl up with the latest Anne Rice novel. One interaction with my family that sticks out: I remember coming downstairs one Thanksgiving wearing black lace and combat boots. I dyed my hair jet black the week before. My mom took one look at me and said, "Raven, could you at least try to look normal for one day?" My dad laughed nervously and mumbled something about me looking like a vampire librarian. I wasn't trying to make a scene. That was just me. But in that moment, I felt like a museum exhibit at the wrong gallery. I picked at my food in silence while they passed the mashed potatoes like nothing happened. That was the last holiday I spent at home for a while. I was their only child, and I think they wanted a bright, outgoing girl to show off. Instead, they got me. I always thought my name, Raven, was cool, different. It set me apart, made me feel unique. But sometimes I wondered if it was a little too on the nose. Like maybe it foretold the darker parts of me I hadn't met yet. The parts that felt too much, or not enough, or just wrong in all the right ways. I actually memorized Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven not long after I learned the alphabet. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. Haha, that poem, it was my anthem before I even knew what an anthem was. I developed a real love for reading and poetry, especially the dark and strange stuff. I was always a loner, quiet, obsessed with horror movies and Victorian cemeteries. I found the goth scene in middle school. And finally, I didn't feel wrong. I had a few close friends who got it, the love of the macabre, the feeling of being on the outside looking in. But even in that crowd, I struggled. I was dating boys, then girls, then both. Then neither. I didn't know what I was, just that I never fit cleanly anywhere. The more I searched for identity, the more invisible I felt. My first drink was at 14. A friend stole a bottle of peppermint schnapps. It was disgusting, but I loved what it did. The way it quieted the noise in my head. The way it made me feel like I belonged at the party. Like maybe for a few hours I was normal. It didn't take long for it to become my thing. Drinking before school, stealing from my parents' liquor cabinet, mixing vodka with Gatorade in my locker. I tried weed, pills, even acid a few times. But alcohol, that was my home base, my secret lover, my slow suicide. By 17, I was cutting. Not for attention, but for release. For something real. A sharp pain I could control when everything else felt foggy and hollow. My early 20s were a blur. I dropped out of 2 community colleges. Worked odd jobs I never kept. Ghosted friends. Slept with people I barely knew. Got blackout drunk and woke up in places I couldn't name. One-night stands were common. There was one in particular. I was at a dive bar on the east side, wearing a fishnet top and eyeliner smudged halfway down my cheeks. I'd been drinking since noon and barely remember how I ended up back at his place. The guy was a stranger, maybe 30, smelled like weed and cologne. We hooked up in a room lit by a blacklight and lava lamp. I woke up in his bed, wearing one sock and someone else's shirt. My phone was dead. My purse was missing. I had no idea where I was. I crept out while he was still asleep and walked 2 miles barefoot before finding a gas station to call an Uber. I told myself it was no big deal, just another wild night. But inside I felt used, hollow, like a mannequin someone had borrowed for a display and forgotten to put back. And as I say this was really nothing unusual. It was my normal. I told myself I was free, alternative, untamed. But truthfully, I was lost. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. My arms were covered in old cuts. My bank account was negative. My phone had been off for weeks. I remember staring in the mirror and not recognizing the girl looking back. Pale skin, matted black hair, hollow cheeks. I'd always loved Gothic imagery, but now I was the ghost. That night, I drank half a bottle of rum and swallowed a handful of Tylenol. I wasn't trying to die. Not exactly. I just wanted everything to stop. This was the last time I used. I was 24 and living in a basement apartment that smelled like cat piss and mildew. I woke up in the ER to the sound of beeping machines and fluorescent lights burning my eyes. There were tubes in my arms, something tight around my chest, and a sour chemical taste in my mouth. My wrists were strapped down. I guess I'd thrashed or tried to pull something out. I turned my head and saw my mom through the glass, her face red and blotchy from crying. We hadn't spoken in months. I got sent to a psych ward, then outpatient treatment. That's where I met Casey, a counselor who didn't flinch when I told her everything. The drinking, the cutting, the self-hate, the confusion about who I was. She just nodded and said, "You're not broken. You're buried." That line changed everything. I started going to recovery meetings. Not just AA, all kinds. LGBTQ focused groups, women's circles, trauma recovery support. I slipped a few times, once after a breakup, once after an old friend overdosed. But I kept coming back. I started writing again, journaling. I started a new hobby, quilling. It sounds strange, but it's cutting thin strips of paper and curling them into spirals, making something delicate and beautiful out of something sharp. It gave me that same strange calm as drinking and cutting, like I was shaping chaos into patterns. Except now it is paper and not skin. Sometimes I wonder if I'm tempting fate with the razor pinched between my fingers, but I don't have the urge to cut anything but paper now. Making art, letting people in. I found a sponsor who didn't care what I wore or who I dated, only that I kept being accountable. Life, it's not perfect. I still battle depression. I still get that urge to disappear. But now I talk about it. I have tools, I have people, I work as a veterinary technician. Animals have always been my soft spot. They never judged me, never asked me to explain, just loved me for being still and kind. The way I got into vet tech work wasn't some dramatic aha moment. It was small, quiet, and I'll say fate. I was at a community center meeting, hanging outside with the smoking club, when this scruffy little dog wandered by. No collar, limping, totally freaked out. Everyone kind of ignored it. I couldn't. I crouched down and talked to it real soft until it came over. I wrapped it in my hoodie and brought it into the meeting. The woman who ran the meeting noticed. Her sister worked at a vet clinic. She arranged for me to bring Scruffy by. I dropped in the next day and met her sister. After a quick exam, she asked if I'd ever considered working with animals. I hadn't. Not seriously, but something clicked. A week later, I was volunteering, and a few months after that, she offered me a job. Slow and steady. Not glamorous. But it felt like home. Now, in sobriety, I'm finally building something real. I'm going back to school part-time with the goal of getting into the veterinary medicine program at UW-Madison. It's hard, but it feels right. It feels possible. I run a little online quilling card store. I have a partner. Kind, weird, safe. My parents and I aren't exactly close, but they're proud of me. And I don't hide anymore. The dark stuff, it's still there, but it's not in control. It's part of me, not all of me. If you're listening and you feel like a ghost, like you've drifted so far from yourself that there's nothing left, please hear me. It's not too late. You're not broken, just buried, and you can dig your way out. I did.